hold during the lecture. There's no podium.
That's why they make it there.
Yeah, it's recording.
I had a nun in school. She was an older nun. She would always carry the eraser in hand. She'd walk around. All of a sudden, the kid is sleeping. Pop that kid. He's awake.
That beats the ruler.
That beats the ruler.
Yeah, I'd rather get the eraser than
Get the puff of powder on you.
Okay. All right, so we're back on. We're talking about the equivalents. 12-ounce regular beer. Standard, boring domestic beer. Miller, Bud Light, Corona. I know they call that imported, but I think they make it in Dayton now or something like that. If you're drinking that exotic, higher alcohol stuff, read the label. You're going to have to do the math. 80 proof is your standard hard liquor, about an ounce. You really need to know if the bartender gave you an ounce. If you tip well, if you're really attractive, if you're a frequent flyer, or pouring it at home, you may not get an ounce. And again, this is a classic mistake. There's drinks certainly that have hard liquor in them that would imply that you shouldn't drive or work for many hours. Name one.
151.
What is it?
Bacardi. 151 Bacardi.
Okay, well that's like that's double. Basically.
Moonshine.
Long Island iced tea.
Okay, let's say I have that Long Island and I get that top shelf rum in there. You know, it should come with an affidavit. I understand that I had 4 to 6 servings of alcohol and shouldn't drive, work, operate home machinery for the next many hours, that sort of thing. So use your common sense, know what you're drinking. Wine is another tough one because people consistently overestimate a serving of wine. And this is that people go to they go to the refrigerator with that tumbler and they have the box, you know, the box of Franzia in there. And they go, this is one. No, in a standard Coke can, three servings of wine would fit in a standard Coke can. So it's really small serving. Mistake number one is really not knowing what you're drinking. Okay. Another mistake would be not looking at the math and asking yourself how you feel. You're gonna feel better. I feel better. After several drinks, I feel more empowered. I'm bigger, faster, stronger. I've got hair. We make mistakes. We start taking risks when we're under the influence of alcohol. Could a minor risk on the freeway cause an accident, a horrendous accident? Yeah. Okay. I think we really covered that. Let's talk about crack, cocaine, methamphetamines. You know, caffeine and nicotine are in the same category as meth. But are they the same thing? Absolutely not. I've had 2 cups of coffee now. I'm pretty much normal. All right. I'm not going to peel the aluminum siding off your house, rob a bank, that sort of thing. The big 3 are crack, cocaine, methamphetamine. These are substances that dump all of the dopamine in the person's system. They're euphoric. They're energetic. It's not a come-to-work drug. The come-to-work drugs are the sedating drugs. Alcohol, benzodiazepines, the opioids, that sort of thing. These drugs are the I'm not coming into work drugs. I got paid, it's Friday, I'm cracking it up all weekend, I'm broke on Monday, yeah, I'm going to schlep it into work. I have no dopamine left, I haven't slept, and I'm broke. That absenteeism, crazy stuff. Yeah.
What is crack?
Wow. Crack cocaine, before heroin, crack cocaine was the drug of choice. And it's a...
so it's not heroin?
It's a derivative of cocaine. All right, it's altered in some way, and it was cheap, available on the street, and it provided a very short but very, very high euphoric high. And it was extremely addictive, and it just ravaged the inner city. It really did. Not to say that people outside of the inner cities used it. Since then, heroin and the opioids have taken place, and those are a much more equal opportunity destroyer. They in fact, on some level, they've ravaged the suburbs and middle-class people to a greater extent.
So heroin is not a stimulant?
No. Heroin is an opioid, which has a depressant aspect to it, and then of course it deadens our pain receptors. Yeah. So this is an upper. Okay. All right. I feel like we covered that. We're gonna skip over marijuana for a second and talk about the opioids. Does anybody not know we have an opiate epidemic taking place right now? Okay, that's nationally. Which state, I won't say is winning, which state has the worst problem? We do. Anybody know someone who died? I hate that I have to ask this. It's becoming the kind of question where I don't go to a place and someone doesn't know someone
All my friends are dead.
who has died. I'm sorry?
All my friends are dead.
Get out of here, really.
A lot of them, yeah.
That's really unfortunate, but it's reflective of where we are. Now, it includes a couple of things. It includes the prescription painkillers, which have a valid medical purpose, and heroin, which is not available by prescription. Now, here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying don't take painkillers. I'm a cancer survivor. I've had a couple of major surgeries. I've been on morphine, I've been on Demerol and all that kind of stuff. But I want you to know that these medications are highly addictive. And so if you're taking medications, I want you to be aware of that. Take them as prescribed. And someone taking them as prescribed can still become addicted. That's the tough thing. So there's very narrow a window of opportunity here for some people to avoid just sliding down the slope to addiction. It may cause withdrawal. We'll talk about that in a minute. The impairment is sort of a dopey type of thing. I don't know if anybody's seen someone nodding out before, but here's what it looked like. Someone who was strung out on painkillers. They call it nodding out. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm just... They tried to say tired, but they couldn't get it out of their mouth. I'm just tired. Have you been tired at work before? Yes. What do you do when you're tired at work? Yeah. Do 10 jumping jacks, try some coffee, move around a bit. We've all worked tired. Especially if you have kids, you know what it's like to work tired. You had a kid up all night long, or something was bothering you, or whatnot. You were tired. You just deal with it. You go to work. When a person is on an opioid, the physiological need to shut down overrides the brain's desire to stay awake. And it's very pleasant for the user. So there's this sort of dopiness kind of thing. What about withdrawal? Does anybody know what withdrawal looks like? Do you have any idea? Did you ever see it with the friends? You know, these sort of flu-like, achy, hunched over. You can tell they don't feel good. No, I just have the flu. Now, anybody can have the flu. Should I have the flu every day? Should my flu go away at lunchtime? Why would my flu go away at lunchtime? Here's what's going on when a person is addicted to this group of substances. And by the way, I work with teenagers. My teenagers that I work with, there's a strange belief that there's this thing pending called the zombie apocalypse. I'm not worried about the zombie apocalypse that they're concerned about. This is the zombie apocalypse. We have a whole generation of people who have reprogrammed their brains to be focused on just two things. One, I don't want to be sick today. I feel horrible. Runny eyes, runny nose, aches and pains, severe cramping, diarrhea. It's horrible. And then if they can get those symptoms to go away, the only other thing they're interested in is maybe I can get a little buzz. Maybe I can feel high. That's it. That's the zombie apocalypse that we're talking about right now. So these people have reprogrammed their brains to just focus on this. It's a don't do it. It's a don't get involved type of thing. So how do you protect the people in your life? If you have medications at home, they should be under lock. If you're done with them, you should get rid of them. Wherever you live around here, you can talk to the local drugstore, police, fire, whatever. They will tell you how to appropriately dispose of your medications. Okay? But don't just leave them there for your kid to find. Do kids sometimes do stuff just because of the opportunity? Adults sometimes do stupid stuff just because the opportunity was there. So remove that opportunity. In many cases, what the young person's first exposure to a drug is through the medicine cabinet or medications that they found. They go, oh, his dad's got, his dad's, he seems okay, kind of. But, it must be safe. He took it. And then they take two. And they're smaller. Or worse yet, they wash it back with a beer, or they snort it, or whatever the case may be is. And their body becomes attuned to it within a very short period of time, and then we have physiological withdrawal. It impairs judgment. The person is again, very lethargic, they're very high, they don't have the judgment, they don't have the timing, and they're just really, really doped out. We talked about marijuana. Let's go back to marijuana. Okay, so we talked about alcohol, which, by the way, if it's used with inappropriate amount and frequency, leads to cancer and all kinds of other crazy diagnoses. It's the #1 chemical killer after nicotine. or tobacco, I should say. We talk about crack and cocaine and crystal meth, which makes normal people walk the streets, peel the aluminum siding off their neighbor's house, recycle manhole covers, and we talked about the heroin and opioid epidemic, which is killing all kinds of people and causing a ton of, for example, retail crime, shoplifting, and all that stuff. Now we're going to talk about marijuana. Does it seem less dangerous?
Mm-hmm.
It is less dangerous. But does less dangerous mean this is the one you should use before work? Should a person be high before work? All right. I work with teenagers and they go, I just smoke weed. I don't smoke crack or shoot up. You know, and the kid I was working with, I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you a BB gun and a shotgun. Which one should you shoot yourself in the head with? And he goes, the BB gun. No! Neither! The venue here is work. What kind of impairment are we looking for? We're looking for zero impairment. So I get the danger level is down here. I understand that there's some medicinal properties, and I really believe that there is, and we'll find more. But the venue is work, and marijuana does some things. A couple of things it does is it alters the time-space continuum. Our perception of spatial relationships and time. You're in the white van and you're driving west on I-480. We don't need people merging onto the freeway going 7. That could be dangerous. Failure to signal that lane change, all that kind of, I'm just trying to point that out. The other thing that we see, and I don't know if this is on the next slide or not, this is where I kind of move away from the PowerPoint. We see issues with motivation. Now this isn't for your occasional user. I work with children who you're using every day. They call it wake and bake. Get up, light up. They smoke that blunt before they go to school. A little more weed at 4:20 in the afternoon, maybe a little nightcap before they go to bed. Their THC level is sky high, and they have this thing called amotivational syndrome. They don't want to do anything. Don't want to get anything done. But it goes away. It goes away when that THC level gets out of your system. Now here's the tough thing. Nationally, and I think in Ohio, probably in the relatively near future, we might see legalization of this drug. Do you think policies will change to allow you to have THC in your system?
Mm-hmm.
No. Alcohol is legal. You're allowed to have that in your system during work.
What is THC?
THC is tetrahydrocannabinoid, I believe that's right. It's the active ingredient in marijuana that gets you high. There's like 900 other chemicals, but that's the only one that my customers are concerned about. I have kids who, when I have a teenager in my office, they have problems with weed or whatever, then we'll do the interview and then I'll get them alone without their parent. I'll go, you got a cell phone? Of course they all do. I go, let me see the pictures of your weed. And they go, how would you? I'm like, do you have pictures of weed? And they're like, yeah. Well, all right, let's see what you got. Why did you take a picture of this one? It's got like crystals on it. You can see the THC crystals. The quality of marijuana has gone up. The potency of marijuana has gone up dramatically in the last 30 years or so. And kids are using a larger quantity, blunts instead of joints, dabs, which is sort of like a peanut brittle-y kind of thing, where they use butane to push the THC out of the plant matter, and it's just the resin.
And they're growing it at home.
They can grow it at home, but I'll be honest with you, our government hasn't done a really good job of preventing the marijuana from coming in from British Columbia, Canada, and Mexico. That homegrown stuff, that's ditchweed. We want some high-quality purple dro. We want some kush. Those things are available. The teenagers have a better shot at getting marijuana than alcohol. It's portable. They got it in their back pocket.
Oh, don't the dealers contaminate it with other substances to...
Well, here's one that you could. Now, keep in mind the profit margin. Typically, when you cut a substance, the idea is to increase the volume, to increase your profit. The big thing that we see in marijuana, and this is crazy, is crushed glass.
Crushed glass.
Finely ground crushed glass.
Because it looks like crystals, so they're
Correct.
all.
I don't know how breathing in molten silica sucking it into my lungs would affect me, but I gotta believe it's probably not a positive effect.
I also heard rat poisoning.
We see strychnine and stuff like that, usually in the powdery drugs. Your heroin and your cocaine. I suppose it could be in marijuana. Typically that's in the powdery drugs. Again, if I have a big white mound, I paid $12,000 for this, and I want to increase my profit margin, I just need something with physical properties that look the same.
Yeah.
Gypsum, drywall, strychnine, all different kinds of things, mix it up. And so, and that's another issue with street drugs. We don't know what the potency is going to be. We don't know what the quality is going to be. We don't even know if we're getting what we paid for. So there's all kinds of dangers there. But on the marijuana thing, the danger level is different. I'm less concerned about death. We're talking about motivation here. I would think you talk to them, you visit the job, and you write a proposal. And I understand there's materials, but I'm guessing in this field there's a heck of a lot of labor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Motivated people provide value.
Mm-hmm.
Unmotivated people just suck the profit out of the thing. So I just want to point that out. The motivational problems are what we see with the marijuana. Okay, the other issue is this. Because of the decriminalization that we're seeing and the normalcy that we're seeing with marijuana, which I'm not necessarily against. When I worked in downtown Cleveland, a poor person of color would go to prison for the same charge that a kid out in Lake County would attend my one-day workshop for. That's not fair. Okay, so we're seeing some decriminalization here. Don't confuse that with I can have it in my system. Secondhand smoke, not going to be a problem. The problem is when people are around secondhand smoke, what do? They get some firsthand smoke. That's the issue. Okay? Oftentimes it's under the influence of alcohol. You're at a party, whatever, having some drinks, which is your right. You've got it planned out so you can get it out of your system, and then the doobie starts, floating around the poker table there, and it gets to you, and you're like, oh my God, I'm faced with a decision. Maybe I won't be random tested. Don't make that mistake. Tell your friends and family, hey, I need to have nothing in my system. Alcohol is the only thing I can use. So I'm telling you right now, while I'm stone cold sober, never offer it to me. Please. I get people over and over who make a decision because they felt pressured and they were under the influence of alcohol and they didn't have the refusal skills. We covered that stuff. Okay, these are sort of niche drugs. These don't look like the right demographic for it, but we have PCP, nickname water or wet. There's LSD, the psychedelic drugs, and so forth. These are drugs that bend our ability to understand what's happening. Would it be fair to say that does not make me work ready? I'm assuming there's some people here who have a trained ear. I was thinking about that on the way here. There's some people here just know a true, or you name a note, F, sharp or something like that. Are you one of those people?
To an extent, yes.
Okay, all right. I'm just trying to point out, right? Do you have musical backgrounds? Is that? Okay. We want you to perceive what's really happening in time and space. So the good news is these are not come-to-work drugs. The come-to-work drugs are the sedating drugs: alcohol, marijuana, opioids. Okay. Same thing with magic mushrooms, LSD. They bend our perception of time and space, and that's not making us work right. Designer drugs, ecstasy, K2, artificial marijuana, MDA, MDMA, any sort of street drugs or manufactured drugs, all of these are going to alter a person. Now, ecstasy, I don't know if anybody was around during the ecstasy epidemic. It was a combination of a stimulant and a psychedelic. But again, like any street drug, we don't know. Sometimes the DEA will buy ecstasy on the street and it's just caffeine. Why? Why would it be just caffeine?
Cheap.
Yeah, and I'm a drug dealer. I ran out of my product, but I've got customers. Why is it sometimes that heroin addicts buy heroin and it's not heroin, it's fentanyl? Hey, I've got a customer base, and they don't have the same reputation to protect. They're just trying to earn money right now. And if we send a couple people to the emergency room or the morgue, sometimes that's a good thing and that's the thinking of a drug user. That person died, that must have been good stuff. I know, as crazy as that may sound, that's the way it works out there. Okay, inhalants. This is more of a middle school thing. Butane, gas, solvents, propellants, Freon, all that kind of stuff. Really dangerous, don't do them. So we covered the substances. Drug testing really is the strongest link in the chain. Mistakes don't happen there. It's admissible in court. Just want you to know that, right? It's chain of custody. If a person submits a specimen, it's labeled by that person. We know it's theirs. When it gets to the testing facility, they have to tear this label. If that label is already torn, it's not an admissible specimen. They test it. If it's negative, it's negative. If it's positive, they test it again just to make sure. And if it's still positive, then they refrigerate that specimen for further testing if it's disputed. A 2 dilute specimen is not acceptable. That means a person drank 3 gallons of water in order to dilute the things in their system.
How does this work if someone contests the test? And I mean, as far as the employer is concerned, or is that something?
I'm not sure I
Like
understand the
if,
question.
if someone tests positive and they're contesting,
Fine, let's contest
The
it. They,
decision.
they can go ahead and rerun that test. Okay, you can rerun the test.
rerun the same test at a different time?
Yeah, if a test comes up, here's what happens. If a test comes up positive, the testing agency already tested a second time.
Okay.
Okay? They have double confirmation.
Okay.
If the person disputes the test, we can test it a third time. We can test it a fourth time.
The same sample.
Yes.
Ah.
Yes. The person has to give sufficient amount, and positive tests are refrigerated for a certain period of time just to make sure that if there's a dispute.
I see.
I've been doing this for over a quarter of a century. I'll be honest with you, when people come up positive, it's usually because they made a mistake or have an issue. Now, could a person test positive for a substance because they have a prescription? Yeah. Yeah. But if you have a prescription, you should have said, to your supervisor, hey, I got a prescription for Vicodin and had a twofold or whatever the case may be. And sometimes I'll get a client who's just grasping at loose straws and like, yeah, is there a drug that would make me test positive for PCP? No, there's not. But there is a medical review officer who would meet with that person before results would be sent to your company to say, hey, what are your medications? Let's take a look and make sure that it's not a false positive.
I see.
Okay. Positive to retest and medical review officer to analyze. We talked about this at the beginning, the different types of testing. We have a rebuttable presumption. Let's talk about that a little bit. The rebuttable presumption means that there's a presumption that a substance didn't cause an accident. For example, let's say I'm here or you're here and the light fixture falls on your head and you're injured. The presumption is that whatever's going on in your system, you're not responsible for that accident. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
What if I'm driving a vehicle though, and we do a post-accident test and it comes up positive? That's a situation where the presumption is that the substance the impairment may have caused it. Okay, so that erodes some of the foundation on which people have made claims in the past. I never want anybody to get injured, but for gosh sakes, if you got injured at work, I would want you to be able to dip into the BWC benefits that you pay for.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we pay them. Right? It's kind of like car insurance. You pay too much for it and you hope never, ever, ever, ever to use it. Right? Okay. We talked about suspicion. We talked about random testing. What if I test positive? Now, I don't know what your policy is, but it sounds like with the EAP program, I'd be given the opportunity to address the issue.
Yes.
Okay, I'd be referred for an assessment. Someone like me would interview the person, well, what happened, what's your pattern of use, blah, 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 some recommendations would be made. I don't know, treatment, education, testing, self-help meeting, something. They need to complete the treatment. They sign a last chance agreement. More frequent tests are in the next year. I've seen people go both ways. I've seen people return after I just worked recently with a young lady who was a receptionist. There were some concerns about heroin use at her company, so they tested everybody. She went up to management bawling her eyes out. She goes, I don't use heroin. My college roommate was here last week and I smoked pot. So it was in her system. She knew that she was going to test dirty. I did her